We just talked about some of the problems. Let's talk about a good problem to have. Penn State's third down defense. What's it going to look like this year? Regardless of your defensive coordinator, regardless of the scheme you're playing, third down is your opportunity to be creative and aggressive on defense. So Tom Allen likes to play dime defense. So you have your nickel, who is a safety in this defense. Now, they've talked about how this is still a 4-3 defense, and they base out of that, but that's also just kind of saying, like, structurally we have 4 down defensive linemen, and there are 3 players that play in the underneath coverages at a linebacker position. But the body types and some of the responsibilities and coverage for that lion position are closer, or at least a more even split between secondary player and linebacker. Then when you get to third down, that guy can rove around the defense, or one of those safeties can be kind of a free-floating player. Then you bring in a true corner for that nickel position. When you've got all of those, when you've got those 6 defensive backs on the field, you call that dime defense. So nickel, dime, you get how football works, right? But at the same time, you've got to take players out of the front 7 in order to accommodate a player on the back end. So which one of the players up front do you want to take off of the field? Granted, one of them is going to be your heaviest defensive tackle, your run-stuffiest defensive tackle. Zane Durant needs to be on the field. It feels like that's a strong gotta have him on the field. You have 3, if not 4 defensive ends that you can play. Jameel Lyons has people's eyes wide as saucers. Everyone's in love with Abdul Carter. Denai Dennis-Sutton is a really good football player who's earned that right. And Amin Vanover is a really good football player who's earned that right. So there's 4 there. We got 5 defensive linemen. We've got 6 defensive backs. Are they going to play a linebacker at all? Tony Rojas needs to be on the field. You've got to fight for these positions on third down. It's almost like an entirely new defense. So what's it going to be? How are you gonna slice this cake? I'm always fascinated by this. We saw Manny Diaz take one approach. We saw him augment that approach over time, from when he had Jair Brown to then when he wanted to run 4 defensive ends, and then people started running on him on third down and 20 and almost getting a first down and then converting some of those. So they went back to just a base defense. What's the combination this year? They start that in camp. You lay the groundwork of what you want to be for the first month of the season at the very least, but really the core of your identity. When we need to get a stop, we do this. And you start practicing that in, you start experimenting with it in the spring, and then you really hammer in and hone in on what you want to be during training camp. So that's going to be something they figure out. A part of this conversation is the Abdul Carter conversation we had yesterday. And I kind of left off with this thought because I didn't have enough time to get into the nuance of it. But here's what I'm thinking after 24 hours of kind of mulling on it. Base downs are different, as we mentioned, and Abdul Carter is going to play with his hand in the dirt as a defensive end on base downs. Whether he's the starter or not, I don't know. Whether or not he beats out other guys for that position. But on third down, there's nothing that says that he has to play outside. He doesn't have to rush off the edge. He can rush off the edge sometimes, or he can go back to doing what he did, which is being a total havoc player, where he's rushing over the A-gap, and you're designing the defense to get him against a running back. You could do that with Jameel Lyons, but Abdul Carter, that linebacker-like movement skills, the ability to win and dominate in space and dominate smaller opponents because he's got the size and the strength, you don't want to just get rid of that. In my mind, because, again, like I said, I only played Madden. I didn't play NCAA, so I have to fight this binary idea in my mind where now he's only a defensive end. No, he can play safety if you wanted him to. Like, that's the whole point of defense, is you can play those players at literally any position. The results of that, that's on you as the defense coordinator. So we'll see how third down defense goes, where Abdul Carter plays, how they use the front 7, etc., etc., etc.